I mentioned off the top George Barna and Carson Pue being with us today, and they are indeed right here sitting across from me. Welcome, men.
Thank you.
Good to have you. You've known each other for a long time, the two of you?
We have. We actually met in one of my mentors' homes. It was the first time we were together.
Now, the Arrow Leadership Program, have I got that right? Yes. Arrow Leadership Program, founded by Leighton Ford 20 years ago. You've been involved for 16 years, and you're now the executive director? Have I got that right?
CEO.
I'm sorry, CEO. Yeah. CEO. And you've appointed 2 new presidents, one a Canadian, one an American.
That's correct. Yeah.
In a quick summary, how is Arrow doing?
Well, Arrow's the need for what Arrow does in terms of coming alongside and mentoring leaders has never been greater than it is right now. And I think it ties into somewhat what you were saying earlier about the changing times around us. And as George has written about the changing times for the church and people trying to just figure out how to live and lead well means that there's a greater need for mentors than perhaps there has been in decades.
Now, both of you have specialized in influencing the church with good information, good analysis of events. You've written this new book, Mentoring Wisdom, Living and Leading Well, published by Castle Key. George, in all of your remarkable work, you've really become the standard in terms of what's really happening out there, because you have done all of these multitudinous surveys. People quote you all the time. You've done work on leadership. What advice or what counsel would you give George Papandreou right now as he is facing a confidence vote in Greece and overseeing possibly the first domino to fall in the fracturing of the European Union?
One of the things that you learn is you don't give advice unless you're really prepared to do so.
But you know, I know that was unfair. I'm throwing a curve at you, but the point I'm making is, does a leader fall into crisis like this just suddenly, or is it something that is a result of a gradual decline, gradual inattention, gradual failing? I mean, talk about that.
There are both types of situations. I mean, there are certainly some things you cannot foresee, but I think the situation they're in, when you're talking, for instance, about debt, that doesn't happen overnight.
Right.
That's something that has happened over the period of years. And so the whole point of being a leader isn't that you're just behaving in the moment. A leader is somebody who's supposed to have enough foresight based on information and wisdom to be able to think ahead. What you do as a leader is you bring people along behind you. You don't just hang out with them and wait and, gee, let's see what happens. So you're supposed to be planning, strategizing, interacting with a lot of people to get wisdom, to understand where they're at. What's it going to take to move people to a whole different understanding, a different set of behaviors, so that we can not only overcome what we've got now, but we'll be in a better position for the future. We'll behave differently in the future so we don't repeat history. So, I mean, that's what a good leader would do. What we often have are people who are in positions of leadership who aren't actually leaders. Right. You know, they're popular, they're famous, they want the attention, they want whatever, and so they do whatever they have to do to get that position, but they don't have inside what it takes to actually lead. And that's when a nation, a community, a church, a business, a school really gets into trouble, when you have somebody who's not a leader pretending to be a leader.
Yeah, and which raises a very interesting question, because right now the U.S. are gearing up for another presidential campaign. You've got a number of Republicans who are vying for the nomination. You've got Herman Cain, who's in big trouble right now because of reference to something that happened back in the 90s, with whether it's true or whether it's not. It's certainly in the news every day. And one gets the impression, Carson, sometimes that elections become a popularity contest, a profile contest, and are not really an issue, are not really a contest of leadership skill at all. You know, again, both of you are so much focused on church ministry and what's happening around the world in the Christian community, but certainly there's got to be some crossover of what you're learning about leadership to the secular world. What's your analysis of how the U.S. chooses a president?
I really don't have an opinion on how they choose a president, Jim. I think that for any politician, your life becomes very, very public, especially at election time. And so we watch that. We watch it here in Canada. We watch it in the U.S., where everything from your past becomes is going to be rooted out somehow and brought into the light, we would use in sort of a Christian phrase. And I think that that's the same thing for actually all of us. Any of us who are engaged in leadership, there is that public part of you which cries out for authenticity if you're going to survive.
Well, we had this story just a minute ago on our newscast of a pastor who's committed suicide.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
How does that happen? I mean,
Well,
and what could or should be done in cases with others who may be considering suicide and they're a pastor?
Mm-hmm. I'm writing an article right now on leaders and depression, because there is a lot of depression or those sorts of feelings taking place right now. And I think it has to do with how things are changing around us. There's a bunch of uncertainty. We don't know what the situation was in that man's life, but it's hard being a leader today. And hence the need to have people who are encouraging and who will come alongside them to help them through that. It's trying to be a pastor today. Jim, you and I have pastored in Vancouver, and but to be a pastor today is a high calling, and it comes at a high cost.